Today on Notsam Wrestling, Randy Orton has wrestling fans screaming, "Daddy's back." The wild speculation is out of control for who CM Punk's opponents will be. Britt Baker's Twitter fingers are activated. And how great is that Continental Classic? This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling, your home of everything Notsam Wrestling. So much to do today, not just everything I mentioned. We will be doing emails on the show today because this Wednesday, instead of an emails podcast coming out, Swerve is going to be in studio on Notsam Wrestling. But before we get there, we got to talk about everything. There's so much to dive into. We've now officially had a week to process the fact that CM Punk is back in WWE. It was a week ago that I came to you amazed, befuddled. Well, maybe not befuddled. Maybe that's not the word. But certainly awestruck that CM Punk had made his return to the WWE, and the awe has continued to be struck. Of course, we dropped the emails-only podcast on Wednesday where I went over his entire Monday Night Raw promo. So if you missed that, you can go back on the YouTube channel or on the podcast feed and listen to or watch that. But still, the CM Punk news continued to develop. If we thought This Week in CM Punk was a hot segment 6 months ago, we haven't seen anything yet. In my own experience, every bit of it is surreal. I thought watching CM Punk come out on Raw, like if you just started zooming in on the minutia of everything that was happening, seeing the CM Punk video, entrance video on the modern day Monday Night Raw set, looking at CM Punk in a WWE ring, going forward, it's all surreal. Going forward, watching the WWE's YouTube channel, and seeing that, like, every day they're dropping CM Punk videos. They dropped a playlist, and this was really smart, I thought, because the fact is that there are wrestling fans, we hear from them in the email segment, that some of them started watching wrestling this year. Some of them got hooked after WrestleMania 39 and have become hardcore fans, but they weren't watching in 2011. Maybe they were watching AEW a year ago, but they don't there are people who don't know the full context of what a big deal it is that CM Punk is back. So WWE dropped a YouTube video, chronicling the moments of CM Punk's career from his debut promo in WWE ECW to winning the ECW title, to winning the Money in the Bank, the World Heavyweight title, the Intercontinental title, all of it, chronicling it. And then also throughout the week, dropping classic matches. I saw there were over 30,000 people randomly watching the premiere of Money in the Bank 2011, John Cena versus CM Punk. They dropped CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar from SummerSlam. They dropped CM Punk defending the title in the Elimination Chamber. They dropped all kinds of CM Punk matches, just one after the other. They were realizing that they can now be in the CM Punk business that they've been out of for almost 10 years. I went to the Barclays Center on Friday night for Smackdown. Great time, but just walking into the venue, the Barclays is set up so that the big merch booth is right past the front door. They scan your tickets, and the first thing you see is the biggest merch booth that they have. And right there is a CM Punk t-shirt with that old, fist grabbing the lightning bolt with the X carved into the hand and the tape wrapped around it and everything. And I was back in 2007, 2008, 2009, obviously going into 2011 and 2012. But I was like, wow, I had to go up to the merch booth and buy a CM Punk shirt. Just because I thought there was a good chance that I wouldn't ever do that again at a WWE show. So now I've got the AEW Chicago venue exclusive t-shirt. I've got a bunch of the WWE original CM Punk t-shirts, and now you got to get the return CM Punk t-shirt because And it really, like, as I'm buying that t-shirt, I'm like, why at this point am I buying the t-shirt? How often am I walking around really wearing wrestling shirts? At this point in my life, I mean, here and there. If there's one, I bought that Judgment Day t-shirt with the 4 cartoons on it that Dom always wears. Just, I really like that shirt. I don't know if I've worn it yet, but maybe I would. But aside from, like, wearing, like, a vintage shirt or a retro shirt, right? Like an old NWO shirt or I wear, like, an old ECW shirt. How often am I really walking around wearing wrestling shirts? But when I saw that there, and when I went up to the merch booth to actually buy the shirt, it really contextualized what was happening and brought me back to just being a fan, where it's like, we don't always have to be discussing, what if he gets into a fight in the locker room? What if he throws a temper tantrum and quits? What if he gets injured? What if he's bad for the product? We can just go back to the fact that, dude, 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago, I just used to go to WWE shows, and that guy was my favorite wrestler. And now he's back. And I can just have that experience again, where I can go to WWE shows, and he's my favorite wrestler. And it doesn't have to be about anything other than the stories that he's telling in the ring. And we get to have that experience again. And who knows how long we get to have any of these experiences. So while they're happening, I'm just going to enjoy it. And I know a lot of people are enjoying it because speculation has run wild. And a lot of times, wild speculation is disguised as quote-unquote news stories, but it's just wild speculation. And that's a good thing. That's rule number 2 of Notsam Wrestling. Speculate wildly. As long as you do rule number 1, which is watch the product, rule number 2 is speculate wildly. I'm narrowing into a new rule number 3. Previously, it was we don't fantasy book Randy Orton. That's obviously off the table. We'll do that nonstop going forward. I think by next week we will be able to announce the new rule number 3. So get prepared for it, because I think I've got it. I'm going to give it another week, but I had one of those aha moments, and I said, yeah, that's it. But I'm going to give it another week before I announce it. But the speculation has been running wild as to what the matches will look like that CM Punk is going to have. Because as we discussed on this podcast, I would imagine, as they should have always been in AEW, as they should absolutely be in WWE, every CM Punk match going forward for at least like a year is going to be a super fight. They're all dream matches. How many dream matches are there? All the matches with CM Punk are dream matches. So let's make it so that every time that dude puts on a pair of trunks, it's a match we never thought we'd see, but one that we would fantasy book until we turned blue in the face. Now, obviously, the CM Punk versus Seth Rollins story is already being crafted, right? From before he returned, when Seth Rollins was doing interviews, which, by the way, this is the new kayfabe, when we're quote-unquote not in the arena, right? We're not on the show, but we're still doing interviews where we're saying we don't like CM Punk. Well, that's all in play. Everything counts. Everything counts. So it starts to be built. CM Punk comes back. He's got this reputation. Seth Rollins, after winning the War Games with his team, is flipping off CM Punk. Seth Rollins goes on television and he says, I don't want to waste another minute of my breath talking about that hypocrite. He's not happy CM Punk is back. He's insulting him. He's calling him a hypocrite. He doesn't believe the hype. Said the same thing at a live event the night after Survivor Series. CM Punk comes out and does a promo an hour later where he says, everybody is here and they're happy to see me back, except for the people who know that I'm better than them. And that's why they're upset. And boom, there we go. If you put everything into context, Seth Rollins said he doesn't like CM Punk. CM Punk said, well, that's because I'm better than Seth Rollins is. And now we've got a story. The story was already laid out, whether you caught it or not. So I don't think that there's a lot of people debating whether or not Seth Rollins versus CM Punk is going to be that first match. There are people debating whether or not it should be. What should CM Punk's first match be? Should CM Punk's first match be the biggest match that you can put CM Punk in? Because let's start the conversation there. What is the biggest match you can put CM Punk in? I think the biggest match is always going to be dictated by the story that's told. So anything on paper can be made 100 times bigger with the right story. However, if we're just talking about what's on paper, if we're talking about a potential story, if we're talking about that moment where the two square off in the ring, today, the biggest match, in my opinion, is CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. The same way that if The Rock came back, what would the biggest match for The Rock be? The Rock versus Roman Reigns. When John Cena came back, what was the biggest match John Cena could have? John Cena versus Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is the top guy in the company. Whether you think the Bloodline story has gone cold, whether you don't like how long he's had the title, whether you wish he would defend it more often, there's simply no getting around the fact that Roman Reigns is the top guy in the company, period, end of discussion. There's no getting around the fact that Roman Reigns has had a story over the last 3 years that has revolved around destroying everybody and taking out every conceivable opponent, whether they be full-time members of the roster, whether they be legends. All of them. The biggest match for them has been against Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns has beaten them. And every time Roman Reigns beats one of them, he makes the next potential big match even bigger. Add all of this. Paul Heyman. Add to the fact that every match that Roman has is the biggest match potentially, the Paul Heyman of it all. The fact that CM Punk was a Paul Heyman guy, and now Paul Heyman is a Roman Reigns guy. It's one of the things that made the Brock Lesnar story so compelling. We all remember that face that Paul Heyman made when at SummerSlam, Roman Reigns beat John Cena, and out of nowhere, Brock Lesnar's music played. And it was the first time Brock Lesnar had been around for a year and a half. And his hair had grown out, and his beard had grown out, and he had a sleeveless flannel on, and he walked to the ring, and Paul Heyman had seen a ghost because he hadn't seen Brock in a year and a half. Because since the start of the Bloodline story, Paul Heyman he was not accountable to Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar was not on the television screen. Well, imagine if 10 years later, Paul Heyman now had to be accountable to CM Punk. Imagine if CM Punk could tell that story with Roman Reigns. Not only do you have Paul Heyman in the mix, but you have the fact that when CM Punk was ending his days in WWE, he was fighting the Shield. One of the last big rivalries that Punk had was one of the first big rivalries for Roman Reigns against each other. It was when CM Punk was battling the Shield, and CM Punk at the TLC pay-per-view a month before he left the company, I believe, had the 3-on-1 match with Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. And you could say, well, doesn't that work just as well with Seth Rollins? And to an extent, yeah. But what happened when CM Punk left the company? CM Punk went on Colt Cabana's podcast and made a big deal out of the fact that everybody in the office was making sure that Punk made Roman look strong. That was one of the big takeaways from that extremely controversial interview. Make Roman look strong. And you could say, wow, that didn't actually happen on WWE TV. But everything counts. Everything. When CM Punk left, Roman Reigns was being just kind of hinting, just kind of starting to be formed into the next John Cena. And after CM Punk was gone, they put Roman into that John Cena machine to make the next star. Except now that CM Punk is back, CM Punk is not going to battle the Roman Reigns that went into the John Cena machine. CM Punk isn't going to battle the Roman Reigns that whether he's ready for it or not is being propped up by the company to be a top guy. CM Punk is going to be wrestling the Roman Reigns for the last 3 years. Has been undeniable. When Roman Reigns came out with a t-shirt that said needle mover, I firmly believe that Roman Reigns calling himself a needle mover had a lot to do with the fact that AEW had just picked up a hot free agent named CM Punk. And Roman Reigns started calling himself a needle mover because he wanted to show the industry what moving the needle actually looked like. Well, now he's got to answer for it. To me, that's the biggest match. If you want to go outside of the current day, what's going on in WWE, you can say, what's the biggest mainstream match? What's the biggest match you could put on a billboard? I would argue still that you can make Roman Reigns versus CM Punk the biggest match that you can put on a billboard, but it might be a tough argument to win when you could put CM Punk on a billboard next to a rattlesnake. Not a viper, a rattlesnake, a Texas rattlesnake. Because this week in CM Punk, depending on what sort of, wrestling gossip site you go to, one site said there are discussions for CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it could happen at WrestleMania. Other sites said these discussions haven't been had. Am I here to tell you? I do not think we're going to get CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania. But I've been wrong before. When Stone Cold Steve Austin fought Kevin Owens, I said on this show, you mark my words, Stone Cold Steve Austin will start wrestling again. WrestleMania, he's going to be good. He's going to make money. He's going to have fun. Stone Cold will be on one of the Saudi shows. Stone Cold will be on these shows that you can make 7 figures in a night. I was wrong. Austin, you can never put down the amount of integrity that Stone Cold Steve Austin has. I believe it comes before everything. Stone Cold won't do anything that he doesn't know is going to be awesome, is going to look good. Which is why, to me, if you've got CM Punk and he were to wrestle Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania, then that would mean you're probably only going to have one CM Punk match in the WWE before WrestleMania, if that. You might have two. Elimination Chamber is a huge pay-per-view this year. You've already got guys like Logan Paul being advertised to be there. It's international. It's in Perth, Australia. It's in a big building. They're trying to make it so that Elimination Chamber is just as big as the Royal Rumble on the way to WrestleMania. So it's just big, bigger, biggest as we get to Mania, which makes perfect sense. So in that scenario, I think there's a good chance that, better than bad chance, I should say, that you could see a CM Punk match at the Elimination Chamber. Odds are you will see CM Punk at the Royal Rumble because his face is on the poster already. But that could also mean that CM Punk is just in the Royal Rumble match. Regardless, you don't have a lot of post-AEW ring time for CM Punk before a Stone Cold match. Now, he has had a lot of AEW ring time. It's not like CM Punk has 10 years of ring rust on him. He just wrestled at Wembley in August in a great match against Samoa Joe. So I'm not saying you couldn't do Punk versus Austin right now, but I almost feel like it would make more sense to establish who CM Punk is in WWE in this day and age before you go into the super fight with Austin. Right? I think it to me, storyline-wise, it makes more sense to go, what does CM Punk and Seth Rollins look like? What does CM Punk and Roman Reigns look like? What does CM Punk and Cody Rhodes look like? Like what does it look like with CM Punk existing in a WWE locker room? The fact is, we don't know if CM Punk's a babyface or a heel yet. And I don't think you're going to know that until he's got a couple of months in WWE, until he's had a couple of matches. Because, of course, the return is going to get an outstanding ovation. But when he starts telling stories, how are people going to respond? Are they listening to the part where he says, "This is my home," or are they listening to the part where he says, "I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make money"? And the fact that that hasn't been established yet, and we're already in December, would lead me to believe that WrestleMania feels early this year to do Austin versus Punk. That said, I don't think you're going to do Roman versus Punk at WrestleMania this year. So, if you're going Cody's getting his return match with Roman, and we've got Austin versus Punk, you've got a night 1, night 2 scenario like 38. 38, you had Austin and Kevin Owens night 1, Roman and Brock night 2. That was a huge WrestleMania. One of the biggest of all time, maybe the biggest of all time. Maybe that is the direction to go in. But when do you do Seth? When do you do Seth versus Punk? You know, I mean, if you've got a different match for WrestleMania, it's not out of the realm of possibility, because Elimination Chamber's in February, which means you'll have about 6 weeks to promote WrestleMania. You could have Punk in the Rumble. You could have Punk get eliminated from the Rumble and still want Seth. But then if you do Punk versus Seth, is Punk going to win the title? Unless Damian Priest... No. So, that's the other thing. Drew McIntyre's story is being told right now. So I don't think you can possibly do Seth versus Punk at the Rumble. Because then when are you doing Seth versus Drew? On TV before the Rumble? It feels like Rumble is going to be Seth versus Drew. If that's the case, you could have Punk in the Rumble match. Then you could do Punk versus Seth at Elimination Chamber. And that way you could still do a potential Punk versus Austin at WrestleMania. That's possible. And maybe this is the type of thing where they're going, look, we want to do as many Punk matches quickly as possible. WWE has proven that they're going to be able to build stars. So a year from now, they're going to have a fleet of stars. You're not going to run out of CM Punk matches, right? Like, this isn't a worry, because already on your plate. Now, it was reported too that you know, the first feud is going to be with Seth Rollins. The second feud is going to be with Roman Reigns. I don't believe any of that. I think it's wild speculation. And I think that that's fair. I think if you don't think we're going to get a Seth match and a Roman match, you're not doing rule number 1. You're not watching the product. These are very obvious. You don't need to report this. Clearly, we're going to get those 2 matches at some point. If you were to do Punk versus Roman at WrestleMania because it's so huge, because the idea of Rollins versus Punk at Elimination Chamber is very on the table, in my opinion. Because you could even have Damian Priest cash in at the Rumble. Like, there are multiple people that could take the title off Seth, that could then allow Seth to freely compete against CM Punk without having a title in the mix, which would free up Punk, win or lose, to go to WrestleMania and face somebody else. If he were to beat Seth, he could go to WrestleMania and face Roman Reigns. Who do you have with Cody then at WrestleMania? The only person that I think you could put Cody with at WrestleMania that would take the sting away from not having a Cody versus Roman match would be Cody versus Punk. I think if you've got Rock and you're doing Roman versus Rock, you'd have to do Cody versus Punk. But if you're doing Punk versus Roman at WrestleMania, I mean, I guess you could do Cody versus Seth again, but then you'd probably have to put the title back in the picture. I don't think you can do that. I think you have to either do Punk versus Cody or Cody versus Roman, and I think it's leaning way more towards Cody versus Roman. I think eventually, unless you do Randy versus Cody at WrestleMania, that might be what you could do, but Randy and Cody are now on separate shows, as we saw on Smackdown, which we'll talk about in a moment. So I think you have to do Cody versus Roman at WrestleMania. I think you could do Punk versus Rollins at Elimination Chamber if you want to free that up, but I think odds are that we'll get Rollins versus Punk at WrestleMania is probably when we'll get it. Past that, I'm not just excited about, you know, the idea. And then maybe Punk versus Austin can be WrestleMania 41, right? A year from now. But, you know, I think to me, what are these stories going to look like going forward? I think the idea of an established Punk in the WWE versus Cody Rhodes is one of the most compelling stories you can tell. And if Cody beats Roman at WrestleMania, the fact that on the horizon, you've now got Randy, you've now got Punk, you've now got Seth potentially down the road. Like, there are opponents now built for Cody. Maybe Brock sticks his head up again and goes, I know I put you over, kid, but I want that gold. You know, there are a lot of super opponents now for Cody Rhodes, which is really, really, really important for Cody. Because let's be honest, if he had won the title at WrestleMania 39, who would he have been defending against for the last year? If you think you wouldn't have gotten tired of Cody as champion by now, it's not true. Who would he have been defending against? On the level of, if he beats Roman for the title, successfully defends against Brock, which, by the way, you could not have done 3 Brock matches because he couldn't have won. He would have had to win all of them, which would have made no sense. Who's after that? Who? Now, we're starting to get this line. What if LA Knight steps up? Now that LA Knight is in the position that he could actually step up, we've got Randy, Punk, Seth, Knight, all sitting there, chomping at the bit. And I'm not even thinking of people, you know? What about LA Knight? Punk versus LA Knight. At some point, if Punk sticks around, which I think he will, CM Punk versus LA Knight is amazing. And one of them turns heel. Either one of them could be the heel in that scenario. If Punk becomes the ultimate babyface, which is very possible, maybe that's a reason for LA Knight to turn heel. If Punk becomes the ultimate heel, which is very possible, it just inflates where LA Knight's at right now. And by the way, LA Knight had an interesting Smackdown, to say the least, without a promo, without a match, but coming out to help Randy Orton, who Randy Orton, I think, deserves a lot more attention than he's getting right now. Randy Orton is poised. I will say this on the record. I believe that we are going to get the greatest run of Randy Orton's career. I think that Randy was at home, and already, by the way, before he left, he was in a good place. RK Bro was working. He was a baby face. Like, people were happy every time he came out, and the RKO was getting cheered everywhere. Randy Orton spent the last year and a half at home. At least part of that year and a half, unsure if he was going to return to WWE at all. Randy Orton not only missed the last year and a half of being a WWE superstar, which is all he's known for his entire adult life. This is a dude who, you know, in his early 20s, was he 23 when he won the world title? He's been doing this at a high level since, like, most of us were sitting on the couch trying to figure out what to do with our lives. He was already in Evolution, working with Ric Flair, Triple H, Batista. But all he's done is mature. All he's done is get better and better. And he had to go home due to physical injury. And he was looking at a potential future where, not because of his brain, not because of his choice, but he could have been in a scenario where his body just wasn't going to allow him to do the thing that he's been doing at the highest possible level for his entire adult life. And because he had good trainers, because of the miracle of modern medicine, he was able to get himself better. And after a year and a half of not being a part of this, is back and is as hot as he's ever been. I think that that level of gratitude that has to result from almost losing it. I mean, nothing makes you appreciate what you have more than almost losing it. That's what happened to Randy Orton. And I think the fact that he goes out every night now, as of Survivor Series, realizing that he wasn't guaranteed this night, is going to give us the best Randy Orton that we've ever seen, coupled with the fact that he started good and over the years has only gotten better and better and better. And as a third tier, he is yoked. He got huge. He went home and just decided to put muscle on top of muscle. This guy is a giant now. Have you seen the tree trunks that he calls legs on this dude? Have you seen? I mean, I go to Smackdown at the Barclays Center. I'm sitting there in the audience. I go, that guy's back was never that wide. It's spread across the entire ring how wide that back is now. Randy is enormous. He looks incredible. The best he's ever looked. And he's just dropping RKOs like they're nothing. Hey, throw that Irish fellow off the top of the cage. I'll catch him with the RKO. Hey, Nick Aldis, thanks for the contract ski. RKO. Out of nowhere. Randy's promo on Raw was really great. But I thought that the closing segment of SmackDown this week, and I went back to watch it on TV, so it wasn't just like I got the live experience. I wanted to see how it played out on television. And I thought the closing segment of SmackDown with Randy was the best segment of wrestling television all week. And this was a week where we had incredible Continental Classic matches. This was a week where we had Randy Orton, and I'm starting from Raw. You know, obviously, you're never going to beat Punk's return at Survivor Series. But Punk closed Raw with a promo, which I liked. I liked Randy's closing SmackDown segment better than anything else on television this week. I think there was so much going on with it, right? Not only did you get to see Randy in all of his glory, but you got to see general managers used the way general managers should be used. The problem with the general manager role was not that the authority figure role was stale. It was that the heel authority figure role was stale, right? For some reason, for so long in WWE, there were only two ways that you could be an authority figure, whether you were a commissioner, whether you were a general manager, whether you were whatever. It was either the obnoxious, heel, get in the way of everything authority figure, or it was the neutered, you get nothing done, everybody walks all over you authority figure. It was never just, yeah, that's the guy in charge and he's a person. So what you've got now and they found that, by the way, with Adam Pearce. That's why Adam Pearce was always good. He was just a guy who carried an authority who just let you know. I mean, he was the Jack Tunney style of authority figure, except he was on every week. And Jack Tunney is the authority figure that we should all aspire to be, except for what he did in 1991 with the bait and switch of Survivor Series. When he showed up at the beginning of Survivor Series 1991 and said, because of his actions, Jake the Snake Roberts has been suspended. However, Macho Man Randy Savage will be reinstated, and the two will meet at the closest possible date, which is this Tuesday in Texas. We can't do it tonight. You got to make me shell out another $30 next Tuesday to see this? That I'll never forgive you for, Jack Tunney. Also, weird decisions around WrestleMania 8. You doing that press conference and then, you know, not giving Hogan the shot. Sid wanted the shot. Weird stuff coming off of the Royal Rumble in 92. But before that, everything was great. And the way he carried himself, the way Jack Tunney carried himself was great. He didn't seem like he had bias. He didn't seem like he had an agenda. He wanted to maintain a certain level of order and carry a level of authority. And I feel like Adam Pearce is the closest authority figure. Well, you had Jack Tunney, and then Gorilla Monsoon was very good. Gorilla Monsoon is a very good commissioner. But I think it's been since then that we've had a good authority figure that wasn't just interfering with everything. And we've got that with Adam Pearce, and now we've also got that with Nick Aldis. Now, what I've also always thought about the brands is that you got to have them split. And if they're split, there has to be a competition. It made no sense to me that the same authority figure was on both brands. It's just like, now we just have two shows. Now that you actually have some competition brewing, you make things interesting. And that was made clear, not only leading into Survivor Series and War Games and all that stuff, but with both general managers trying to get Randy Orton to sign the contract. Now it actually matters what brand you're on because you have authority figures that want to have it happen. You got these two authority figures that can not only talk on a microphone, right? So like it makes sense because it's a heavy talking role, but they can take a bump. They're ex-wrestlers. They can take a bump. So we can see Randy Orton drop a Nick Aldis with the RKO. It's a beautiful thing. But the fact that you had Randy Orton interacting with the Judgment Day on Monday Night Raw, and then you had him go to SmackDown to call out the Bloodline, and then you had Adam Pearce going, if you come to Raw, you can face the winner of the Jey Uso-Seth Rollins match for the world title. And then Nick Aldis saying, if you come to SmackDown, you can have the Bloodline. You go, without saying it, what's going on under the surface is they're letting you know, we've got a lot going on right now. And I love segments like that, where these stories are starting to mix, and you realize, like, oh, everywhere I go, there's stuff happening. That's one of the things I loved about the Randy segment. But just I thought that Paul Heyman did such a good job of making it feel like a very big deal that Randy was back. Paul Heyman did not like that Randy was even on the show. Paul Heyman was working towards making sure that Randy did not sign to SmackDown. Randy is now, without Roman even being in attendance, and I think, I think he's there in 2 weeks. I think he's there on the 15th. But we've made it feel like Randy is a credible threat to Roman Reigns. I think that you're looking at a Royal Rumble Premium Live event where you've got Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre, you got Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton, you got 2 Royal Rumble matches. It's going to be a good show. But also very interesting to me, and I couldn't help but think of it because, my brain, it's always like, okay, and then where could this story go? Is LA Knight coming out to help Randy Orton? Now, LA Knight coming out to help Randy Orton is great in the short term, right? The idea of on television, as we wait the 6 weeks for the Royal Rumble, as we have episodes of SmackDown with no Roman Reigns, I would imagine on a SmackDown, they'll probably build it up to a pretty big SmackDown, we're going to get Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa versus LA Knight and Randy Orton. And it is so cool, the idea of seeing LA Knight and Randy Orton on a team together as 2 alpha top-tier baby faces. You've got Randy Orton, who everywhere he goes, he carries himself with, this is my room, this is my show, everybody, pay their respect, pay homage. And then you got LA Knight, who, as we discussed with all the John Cena stuff, going like, yeah, I'll be around the legends. I'll be around the top tier people, but I will never kowtow. I will never bow down. I will make the moments my moments. All I can think about as I'm watching LA Knight and Randy Orton take out the Bloodline is what happens when push comes to shove. Right? Maybe we're not getting, because at first I thought we were getting LA Knight and Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. And maybe we will still. But the point is that these 2 guys fighting the Bloodline are only fighting the Bloodline because they both want the same person. Both LA Knight and Randy Orton are going after Roman Reigns. Neither one of them are in a support role. This isn't, a group of people going, you get Roman, you get Jimmy, you get Solo. This is LA Knight and Randy Orton. Both of them want to take out the Bloodline. Both of them with the intent of going to take out Roman Reigns, to be the guy that chops him down, and to be the guy that is the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. So when the Bloodline is taken out and it comes time for one of those 2 guys to be the guy to take out Randy Orton, how are those 2 guys going to agree on which does what? As compelling as it is, the idea of an LA Knight versus CM Punk match, just as compelling and right at our fingertips is the idea of a Randy Orton LA Knight match. You can't see Randy Orton and LA Knight tagging together without thinking this thing is going to combust. Both of these guys are here to be a top guy. Neither one of these guys get along with others. Both of these guys will just put their finisher on somebody just because. Yes, they're good guys. They're baby faces. They're heroes. But they don't have any friends. They're out for themselves. And it's what's made them likable. But it's also what makes it so that there's no way a long-term connection can build between those two guys. From Randy Orton's perspective, he's the guy that's been here. He's the guy who deserves it. I'm the guy you should be respecting. From LA Knight's perspective, LA Knight's been working 20 years just to get to this moment. He hasn't had, Randy Orton's had these moments for 20 years. That's why he wants respect. All I've been doing for 20 years is being in this moment. LA Knight's going, no, because I've wanted this moment for 20 years. And I've finally gotten there, and I'm not giving it up for somebody that's gotten their fair share. I'm not giving it up for somebody that's been in, gotten every opportunity imaginable from birth. No, no. LA Knight had to watch Randy Orton become a world champion from other promotions, from bingo halls, from everywhere. Everywhere he was looking in at WWE, he saw Randy Orton succeeding. Now that he's finally gotten there and gotten onto the stage and gotten to a place where fans want to see him be the top guy, he's going to let Randy Orton have one more run? Nah. Oh, it's right there. And it's very, very compelling to me. Now, the only thing that I wonder is Randy Orton good enough? Because he's the best. I love Randy Orton. Is Randy Orton good enough to have wrestling fans call him daddy? Because I saw his new shirt. I like it. I like the simplicity of it. I like that it says RKO just on the chest. It says daddy's back on the back of that shirt. Are wrestling fans going to call Randy Orton their daddy? This is a different level. Randy Orton deserves all of our reverence. Randy Orton deserves all of our respect. Randy Orton is goated. Is he goated enough that we'll call him daddy? These wrestlers are pushing it. Roman Reigns wants to be acknowledged and wants wrestling fans to call him their tribal chief, and wrestling fans are doing it. In what other scenario would any of these wrestling fans call some dude their tribal chief? But Roman Reigns has pulled it off. Randy Orton wants to go one step beyond that. No. I want you to call me daddy. Can he do it? If he can, it might be the greatest coup that's ever happened in the world of professional wrestling. We'll see. It remains to be seen. While we're talking about stuff I like, the Continental Classic. How great is this Continental Classic? And I'm not even a guy, like, I like a single elimination tournament, like what, but on paper, I might tell you, I don't know, this seems like just a bunch of really good matches, which is cool, but man, I am so high on this Continental Classic. The matches that we've seen, whether it's Swerve and Jay White, whether it's, Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston is something to write home about, huh? Eddie Kingston not wanting to lose another match. Eddie Kingston putting both of his titles on the line to make this a Triple Crown championship win for whoever gets it. Claudio versus Brody. So many good matches already. So many good matches to come. And it's a through line. It makes it so that the matches actually do matter. You're looking at the chart. You're seeing who's got the points. Who's going to be in the winner of the blues? Who's going to be the winner of the goals? And we're going to get to this point where when we get to World's End, and we've got the two people, whether it's Swerve and Bryan Danielson, whether it's two other people, this match is going to mean everything because we've watched these guys have to fight and claw to get into this position. The only thing I don't love about the Continental Classic is the prize. Like, to me, I feel, and I didn't know this until I actually watched it happening. If you had asked me on paper, is this what you should do? I'd go, I don't know. But now that I've seen it in action, AEW, to succeed, just needs to differentiate themselves from WWE, right? It can be a similar product. It can be sports entertainment, and you need to have all the elements. You need to have storylines. You need to have great characters. You need to have your promos. You need to have your vignettes, your backstage bitch, or all this stuff. But the thing that's going to make AEW different is that you wouldn't have a Continental Classic in the WWE. you wouldn't have 12 guys that are going to do awesome work rate matches over the course of 6 weeks to finally get to this spot, right? Like, this is the thing that'll differentiate AEW. Like, and that way you can like both, right? Oh man, WWE is super fun. There's all this stuff going on, all these storylines. All the stars are stars. You get excited when you see LA Knight. You get excited when you see Jey Uso. You get excited when you see Sami Zayn. You go into Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Randy Orton. These are giant stars. You just get excited to see them. You go to the shows, you cheer the good guys, you boo the bad guys. It's like you're in a fantasy world. It's amazing. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got AEW. That you've got that to an extent, but in reality, you're just going because it's like these awesome matches and people have to bust ass to get opportunities there. And that, to me, can be these little subtle differences between these shows. And if you prefer one style of wrestling to the other, you've got your preference. But in reality, if you're a wrestling fan, I would imagine you like all of the above. And it's going to motivate you to not have your fill. It's going to motivate you to watch all the shows. It's going to go, well, I got to watch Raw and SmackDown to get my fill of that, entertainment, good guys and bad guys and superstars. I got to watch NXT to get my fill of not only what's coming next, but super fun matches and incredibly cohesive storytelling. It's just a good show, NXT. And then I got to watch Dynamite and Collision because not only do you have cool stories, but they're cool stories told through awesome matches, right? That's how you do reality-based wrestling. WWE, they can do reality-based stories by making you believe that their stories are real. Whether it's CM Punk and Seth Rollins, whether it's Drew McIntyre, whether it's whatever. AEW can do reality-based wrestling by just doing good matches where whether the result is predetermined or not, that match was so good, he's earned it in a very real way. He earned the victory. He earned the win. And you don't have to be a hardcore fan to feel that way, but you also can't just have matches for the sake of matches. The Continental Classic contextualizes everything, so we are working towards a goal. I wish that the winner of the Continental Classic simply became the number one contender. I think the last thing that AEW needs is another title. I think the combining of a New Japan Strong Style title and the Ring of Honor title and something called the AEW Continental Classic title, whatever it's going to be called, is way too confusing. There is not enough separation between AEW and Ring of Honor right now. It's devaluing both brands. And I don't think there's anybody from New Japan in the tournament to begin with. So a New Japan Strong Style Openweight Championship, I don't know what that even means in the world of AEW. So instead of having somebody, come out of the tournament looking like Ultimo Dragon with a whole bunch of gold that nobody knows where it's from, I think if you had guys working this hard to be the next contender, because what you don't want is just, you get to become the number one contender by being Wardlow and going, I'm here for MJF and blah, blah, blah. That might work in a more story-based promotion, but if you've got people busting ass like this and having these matches simply because it will earn them a clear road to MJF and the AEW championship, I think that adds credibility to everything. It adds credibility to your matches. It adds credibility to MJF. It adds credibility to that title that MJF is holding, that everybody is fighting this hard just to guarantee themselves an opportunity at that title. That, to me, is like, if you go to World's End and the winner of this tournament that we've been watching for 6 weeks in incredible matches now knows that at the next pay-per-view, not on TV, they will main event the next pay-per-view. And it will be in a world title match against MJF. I think that it adds credibility to everything. That's how I'd love to see it happen. But I'm loving it. I'm week by week, loving watching the Continental Classic. I think it's good TV. I think it's good wrestling. I think they did an amazing job picking who's going to be in this thing. Really, really well done. And stories that are being told within the matches has been great. I can't say enough about how much fun I'm having with it. Speaking of having fun, I'm also having fun with people getting lost in these stories. You know, Britt Baker made many a headline by tweeting out how much promo time MJF had gotten, and then tweeting out the fact that in 2023, Britt had gotten 0 minutes of promo time on AEW, and this has led to on AEW Dynamite, and this has led to a lot of controversy. This has led to some people going, "Oh, the drama's back in the AEW locker room. This is bad for business." It's led to some people going, "You know, Britt Baker needs to be talked to. Britt Baker is a problem." I'm looking at this tweet, right, and I'm going, well, what's the point of this? Is she just publicly bitching about locker room stuff? No, of course not. I don't think there's any way that that's true. Because what's the last thing Britt Baker was doing on Twitter that drew up a bunch of controversy, right? She tweeted out at Full Gear, wait, so MJF has a ton of security stopping him from going to the ring, but the guy on crutches is just allowed to go in? And you're going, oh, is she being critical of the booking? No, of course not. She's the devil. You know, I mean, that to me is like, yeah, Britt Baker sending out those tweets, I believe, is because she's the devil. Why is the devil going after MJF? Well, because MJF's not taking care of her husband. Because MJF is getting preferential treatment. You know, the devil and the devil's henchmen were very Retribution-like on Dynamite. I didn't love it. It was very Retribution-like. When the text came up on the screen and everything, it's like Retribution did not work in the WWE. If you're going to take stuff from WWE, at least take the stuff that works, you know? I wish that had been done a little bit differently, because and immediately I was like, which one's Slapjack? But I absolutely think that the Britt Baker tweets, and I could be wrong. This could be Britt fed up with AEW. This could be Britt stirring things up. I don't know. I have no idea. But every part of my wrestling brain is telling me that these tweets are directly linked to the fact that Britt Baker is the devil, and she's got henchmen working for her. I think Wardlow is one of the people that is working for the devil. You could have the Kingdom working for the devil. Maybe Roderick Strong by himself is working for the devil. You know, I think these are people who either have a problem with MJF, either because he stopped them or because they don't like what he's doing with Adam. But I think that you'll find that the devil and the devil's henchmen represent the ghosts of MJF's past. As we say on Notsam Wrestling, everything counts. MJF spent several years in AEW disregarding everybody, running over everybody. Now that he's a good guy, now that he's got friends, now that he's nice, now that he's doing the right thing, I think all those demons come back to haunt him now, and they've all got devil masks on, and they're being led by a person who is airing her grievances on Twitter, and that's Britt Baker. I think it's going there, but maybe that's because I hope it's going there. Because if Britt Baker's tweets are not because she's the devil, we've got a problem. I think Britt Baker's tweets are because she is the devil. And if that's the case, not only do we not have a problem, but it's pretty stinking great. We also got reports that Kevin Owens broke his hand coming off of Smackdown. I think that we'll see this work through in storyline, obviously. You know, Kevin Owens, his story right now is that he punches people in the face. If a guy punches people in the face, he's got a broken hand. How's he going to punch people in the face? Boom, he's got a vulnerability. I think that's what we've got with Kevin Owens. I guess this will be some news and notes with the Kevin Owens hand thing. I like that. Thought it was interesting. Going into the X-ray room, getting people talking. Very, very good stuff. I'm interested to see what happens between Adam Copeland and Christian on Dynamite, right? We're getting the Adam Copeland Christian. People thought this would happen at World's End, but it's happening on Dynamite. I think it's good because, number one, I don't think this is going to be the match, right? I think that this will probably lead to a return match at World's End. But, if you can get a lot of attention on Dynamite, I think that that's a very good thing. And also, before we get to the emails, shout out to Mackenzie Mitchell, who was released apparently from her WWE deal this week. I don't know why. I got to host several kickoff shows in Orlando with Mackenzie. I thought she was great. She's a great person, but I thought that as an announced talent, she was great. And I saw her not only do great from the beginning, but continue to improve in front of my eyes. So I have no doubt that whatever Mackenzie does next, she'll excel at. But yeah, bummer that she won't be part of the WWE family, at least, right now. Who knows what happens in the future? People come back, people go, people find the next thing. Could be the best thing. We'll see. But I'm a Mackenzie Mitchell fan. So shout out to Mackenzie, and I'm excited to see what's coming next for her. I'm also excited to see what you guys think is happening next. And the way that I find that out is by checking these emails. If you want to be a part of Not Sam Wrestling, all you have to do is email notsamwrestling@gmail.com. The email address is notsamwrestling@gmail.com. Don't forget to also subscribe to this podcast wherever you get the audio feed. If it's on Spotify, leave a rating, as well as a subscription. If it's on Apple, subscribe. Also leave a rating and a review. And, of course, the whole show on YouTube every single week at youtube.com/NotSamWrestling. Subscribe to the channel. Hit like on all of the videos. Leave comments on all of the videos. And both the audio feed and the video channel, Not Sam Wrestling on YouTube, are where you're going to find our in-studio interview with Swerve later this week, probably on Wednesday. Let's go to these emails. Let's go to Andy. Andy says, I've been a fan since the O&A intern days. I appreciate that, Andy. You got me back into wrestling years ago before I had kids. I have 4 boys. Oh, what a man you are. 4 boys. That has to be a wild testosterone-driven house. 11, 9, 7, and 4, and now I watch with them. It's so much fun. It is super fun to see them get into it as I did as a kid. I remember my parents surprising me with WrestleMania 2 tickets on my 11th birthday. My God, it was amazing. I just took my 3 older boys to their first live event, and it was beyond what I expected. It was in Bangor, Maine for the holiday tour. They were so into it, cheering the good guys, booing the bad guys, and chanting, "We want tables." It was great to watch them have a blast. Thank you so much for reintroducing me to something that I loved as a kid and something that I can share and enjoy with my boys. It really is all the best, and congratulations on your 3rd. Thank you, Andy. It really is great. I got to take my 6-year-old son to his first show in May of this year, I want to say, in White Plains. And, I've never seen that dude so into something so consistently. We were the whole show over 2 hours, almost 3 hours, and he cheered every good guy. He booed every bad guy. He was chanted the whole time, shouting his little face off. It's 10 o'clock at night. He's never even been up that late. He was into absolutely everything, and it was so cool to see. It's really a blast. Heather writes in, hope you're doing well. I've been seeing a lot of chatter of people saying that CM Punk is going to be this huge face, which I believe you, like me, disagree with. But I don't disagree with that. There's nothing that tells me that CM Punk can't be a good guy. But there's also nothing that tells me that he has to be a good guy, right? I think in a CM Punk Roman Reigns match, CM Punk's the good guy. CM Punk Seth Rollins match, that might get a little complicated. I could easily see people booing Seth Rollins in a match with CM Punk. Easily. There's history between Punk and a certain wise man. Do you think it's possible they set CM Punk to take over the reign of the Savior along the lines of Roman, with Paul moving back over to Punk's camp, thereby triggering additional issues in the bloodline? No, I don't. I don't see that happening at all. something between Paul and Roman, an interesting heel line for Punk, just wild speculation. I appreciate the wild speculation, but I don't see that happening at all. I think Paul Heyman has evolved. If you look at Paul Heyman as a representative, whether he be as a manager, as an advocate, as a wise man, as a special counsel to, Paul evolves and he moves on and up. I think Paul coming off Punk, they tried to have him with like Michael McGillicuddy or whatever. It didn't really work, but that was still associated with Punk because he was feuding with Punk. But if you look at the substantial moves in Paul's career, it was Paul Heyman being brought back into the fold with Punk because Punk is a Paul Heyman guy. Paul Heyman moved on and upwards to be the advocate to the reigning, defending to Brock Lesnar. And then after Brock Lesnar, Paul, I would say, leveled up to the special counsel of the single most dominant force that has ever held the WWE Championship, Roman Reigns. So I don't see, it would feel very much like when Paul Heyman turned on Brock Lesnar in 2002 at Survivor Series and sided with the Big Show, which is just not the space that Paul Heyman is in. That's very sort of typical heel manager stuff, and I just don't think that's the space Paul Heyman is in anymore. They're doing theater. What do the kids call it? Theater? Shay Boogie writes in, yeet. This email was already written out and was originally just a yeet after your Wednesday episode. I must interject. New rule number 3 can only be one thing, no Mount Rushmores. Okay. Please be advised you will be receiving a yeet in the coming weeks. Keep doing what you're doing. And if you haven't heard Ric Flair's interview with Shannon Sharp, definitely do. I'll check out Unk and Rick. I've seen some clips from it. I haven't watched the whole thing. Yeet! But I appreciate it. I don't know if that'll be rule number 3. That's very specific to the email segment. Kanjay writes in a lot of emotion. Hey, Sam. Warning, a lot of emotion. Okay, all right. Thank you. Hey, Sam, is it just me, or did everyone just brush over the absolutely incredible story moment of Sammy and Jay reuniting on Raw with everything those two have been through together, from Jay hating Sammy at first to the famous Usi segment on Smackdown to the hug at War Games to Jay helping Sammy at the trial to Jay, I remember, 3 Haluva kicks at WrestleMania. After all that, it was so beautiful seeing Sammy congratulate Jay on breaking free from the abuse like Sammy did. And I teared up a little when Jay said Usi and embrace. Are you talking about one of my favorite Raw segments ever? Oh, are you talking about from like weeks, like months ago? Like when Jay first got to Raw? It's you're right. It's a huge segment. But to me, the reason that it wasn't put on this pedestal the way some of those other moments were was because the Jay and Sammy reuniting was epilogue. Prologue. I feel like epilogue comes first, prologue comes last. Yeah, right? Whatever it was. The story's done. You know what I mean? This is kind of putting a bow on it. So in terms of it being a major story beat, it's epilogue. It's whatever log comes after the story. So that's why I think it didn't get as much attention as some of the other stuff. But I loved it. Ultra Boy writes in, a lot of people can agree that 2023 is probably the best year in WWE history. That's an interesting question. Interesting topic for a podcast. The best year in WWE history? I think that is not necessarily a given, but my question is, what was the best pay-per-view of the year? Some people say the ending of WrestleMania Night 1, Money in the Bank. AEW fans will say All In or Wrestle Dream. For me, it's the Royal Rumble with the iconic Sami Zayn chair shot. Second best is Survivor Series with CM Punk. Okay, best pay-per-view of the year. That's true, because the pay-per-views, we've got NXT on Saturday, right? Deadline. And then we've got World's End on the 30th of December. So the best pay-per-view of the year. I think it's a safe time to say that. Maybe we'll save that for a New Year's show. We'll come up with like the best wrestler, the best pay-per-view. Because I'm going to have to go over every pay-per-view. You know, WrestleMania was very good. I don't think it's not, WrestleMania is WrestleMania. It's night 1 and night 2. I don't consider that 2 separate shows. So if you're going to say WrestleMania, you have to say Roman beating Cody as well. And as you know, I've been in full support of Roman beating Cody. So, yeah. No, we'll consider that as we get closer to in a couple weeks, really, when we do our New Year's show. Chris, CJ Santos writes in. I'm writing to ask if you have any advice on how someone can break into the creative side of the industry as a writer. Bro, I start writing classes soon, and I'm saving up to enroll in the Nightmare Factory so I can get some time in the ring, but I'm also very interested in the creative of it all. I would say, if you're interested in being a writer, learn how to be a writer. I would say, if you really, I would say learn how to be a writer and take wrestling classes in your downtime. I would guess that the reason, I think that me being so close to the industry, right, and the fact that I watch everything and talk about everything and just all the time, probably disqualifies me as a candidate for the WWE creative team. Not that they wouldn't hire fans, but I think that they go, we want outside of the box thinking, and odds are that if this dude talks about wrestling all the time, watches wrestling all the time, he'll pitch us wrestling ideas, and we can do that, right? I think that if you're but I at the same time, I think that I've been successful in my broadcasting career, and I think that I've been very successful as a broadcaster with the WWE because I learned how to be a broadcaster and then applied it to wrestling. If I really wanted to be a writer, I would stop all this stuff and learn how to be a writer and then apply it to wrestling. I'd get writing jobs outside of wrestling. I'd go to school for writing. I'd do all of that and then eventually try to apply it to wrestling. And I think that that's the best thing you can do for wrestling. That's the best thing you can do for all of it, So, yeah, that's probably what I would say. If that's your end goal, I would say, and that's for anything. Like if you want to, whatever. If you want to write music for WWE, learn how to write music, then apply it to WWE. I would say if you want to get in on the creative side of the industry as a writer, learn how to write. Learn how to write television. Go write some television. Then apply it to wrestling. I think that would be the advice. That's what worked for me in broadcasting. Let's see. Austin writes in, I think it's obvious that we'll be doing Jimmy versus Jay at WrestleMania this year. What do you think of this stipulation? I'm already like, why would you put a stipulation on that match? If Jay wins, Jimmy must leave the bloodline, but if Jimmy wins, Jay must rejoin the bloodline. No. Who do you think would win in this scenario? No. I think that's a terrible idea, Austin, because Jay has ascended. Jay is bigger than all that, right? I think one of the most interesting stories coming out of the bloodline is the fact that as of even August, main event Jey Uso was only a main eventer in the context of Roman Reigns. As a solo star, right? Main event Jey Uso with Jimmy? Of course, the Usos are one of the greatest tag teams of all time, regardless of if it's on your top 10 list or not. But as a solo act, no. Jey Uso was a main event in the context of Roman Reigns. But since August, that's all changed. You watch Monday Night Raw. We got Seth Rollins versus Jey Uso coming up for the world title. And I'd be lying if I told you that I didn't want him to win that title. I want Jey Uso to be the world champion. I think it'd be great. Jey Uso is a bona fide main eventer. And to put him in a match with a stipulation like that would bring him back down to making him simply about the bloodline. He's the bloodline elevated him tremendously. And now he's about even more than the bloodline. But to go if you If Jimmy loses, he has to leave. If Jay, he has to. Now we're getting muddled back into bloodline stuff. Russ from Jersey, hello, reaching out to see what your opinion would be regarding championship reigns. I think every champion should have one. Would you rather be a multi-time champion like John Cena and Charlotte Flair, or would you rather have one long reign like Gunther or Roman Reigns? Interested in hearing your thoughts. If it were me, it's a great question, right? It depends on what you want. Do you want an iconic run, or do you want to be around forever? I think I like the idea. If it were me, I would want multiple runs because I'd want to be around for as long as possible because I got kids to feed. I'd want to have 14 title runs because it would take me years and years and years and years and years to get all those title runs done. And that would mean that I was employed for all those years, so I was getting paychecks. So I would prefer multiple title runs. But in terms of just creative, in terms of just integrity, in terms of being an artist, an artiste, like Otis, I would rather have the one long run, the statement. Roman Reigns' run is a statement piece. Gunther's run is a statement piece. No matter what happens, Roman Reigns could lose the title tomorrow. You can never take away this run. Gunther could lose the title tomorrow. You can never take away this run. And it would be very difficult to duplicate it. So from a purely creative, from a point of view with integrity, one long run. When I got my business hat on, give me 38 runs. I want to be here forever. Give me them checks. Davey writes in, Sam, longtime listener from almost the beginning, early 2015. Man, that's wild. You have a lot of people asking you to bring the live show to where they live. So instead, I'll ask about us coming to you. Do you have any information on a WrestleMania 40 live show? And if there's nothing confirmed, do you think it will more likely be in Philly or New York? I'm coming over from England, and we'll be spending some time. Okay, that's a great question. I don't have anything planned yet. I would like to do live shows for both Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. I don't know if I'm going to pull off the Royal Rumble live show. I don't know, because time is getting close, and I'm trying to find a venue that isn't like 40 minutes away from St. Petersburg. I would like to do a live show for Royal Rumble weekend. I would also like to do a live show for WrestleMania. If I do a live show for WrestleMania, it will be in Philly. I will not do a New York live show for WrestleMania because WrestleMania is in Philly. I don't know, on Wednesday, on Thursday, something like that. I'm not going to do it on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So if I do it, I would do it on the Wednesday or the Thursday. I do not have anything booked yet, though. So hopefully, if you got a spot in St. Pete, you want me to come out Royal Rumble weekend, hit me up. If you got a spot in Philly, you want me to come out Royal Rumble WrestleMania weekend, hit me up. Nicholas writes in, hey boss, last week's show was amazing. Here's the secret to me, Nicholas, they're all amazing. So Randy Orton was a little too oozy for me last week. I'm not buying that. First, I thought he would cost Jay his shot at Seth's title, but now he's on Smackdown, so it doesn't work. Sooner or later, Randy will come back for Jay and even Sammy because he says all the bloodline guys will pay. I love that. I love the idea of Randy having a babyface run on SmackDown, taking out bloodline guys, then turning heel and going, I said I was taking out all of you, and taking out Sammy and Jay. But yeah, when Randy was taken out, Sammy was bloodline, right? I think so. So that would make sense. That would check out. Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all, actually. I think that's great. Brandon writes in, hope you and your family are doing well. They're doing great. Thank you. I've been a Notsam listener for years, pro wrestler on the side, and vending machine route driver full-time. I love you guys because sometimes, if you're friends, if you're cool people, like when you're there to refill the vending machine, you hook a brother up on the side. And that's always very much appreciated. So I love what you do, buddy. Your podcast helps me get through my drives every day. Well, if you ever get, a Fago route, come by the Bestchester. With that being said, after the reveal of him returning, what's your favorite version of Randy Orton throughout the years? Evolution, Legend Killer, Sadistic Bald Randy in 09, Legacy, Authority, RK Bro. I love this version of Randy. I think it's going to be the best. I mean, I love young legend killer Randy. I love Randy spitting in people's faces, beating up Sergeant Slaughter, beating up Mick Foley. Legend killer Randy, I mean, there's a reason. Legend killer Randy was in discussion to end the Undertaker streak at, like, what was it, WrestleMania 23, I want to say? Maybe 23? I might have that off. But, yeah. No, I like legend killer Randy Orton. I really do. Rated RKO Randy is good too. Hey Sam, I recently rewatched 2017 Royal Rumble and was curious of your thoughts of Chris Jericho being held above the ring in a shark cage. Seems like something they should do again. Perhaps a Judgment Day member up there. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I love the idea of Dominic Mysterio being in a shark cage. Perfect. They're releasing footage of Dominic Mysterio in the shark cage at War Games. I think Dominic Mysterio, us finding out he has a fear of heights and being held in a shark cage above the ring would be a real good thing. Enzo was a veteran at that. Enzo baby oiled himself and was able to sneak out between the bars. But yeah. I'm all for putting Dominic in a shark cage above the ring. Josh writes in, throughout all the years of wrestling, is there a person you wish had an action figure but never did? What's the Holy Grail figure you want to add to your collection but haven't yet? Yeah, the person that I wish had an action figure but never did is the last professional broadcaster, Sam Roberts. Steve, Bill, let's go. The people are waiting. They want a last professional broadcaster. The Holy Grail piece that I haven't added to my collection, I don't know, man. I got that mail away Hogan. I mean, there's lots of stuff I want, but in terms of a Holy Grail piece, I don't know if there's a Holy Grail piece. I got the UK Galoobs. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think there's a Holy Grail piece left right now. I like the new stuff that's coming out. Like, whatever Zombie Sailor's coming out with is my Holy Grail. My Holy Grail is going to be that Ultimate CM Punk that I hope Bill is working on. That's going to be my Holy Grail. Sam, big fan, quick question. Do you think Solo wins an individual title sometime in 2024? It's possible, but I think it's more likely that Roman loses his title and Solo may feud with Roman eventually than he wins a title. I think that's probably more likely. Josh writes in, what are your favorite jobbers, past or present? Dwayne Gill, and I'll tell you, Dwayne Gill is the GOAT. Dwayne Gill is the GOAT enhancement talent. I was obsessed with Dwayne Gill when I was a kid because he was on every episode of WWE Superstars, every episode of Wrestling Challenge, and me and my brother used to talk about Dwayne Gill all the time. And I'll never forget, dude, it's nuts. Survivor Series 1998 Deadly Games. I go, we're driving home before Survivor Series. And I go, yeah, but Mankind is wrestling a mystery opponent. Who do you think the mystery opponent's going to be? And me and my brother, and I think my friend Chuck were in the car. We're all like, oh, what if it's this guy? What if it's, whatever. I guess The Rock was already in the tournament. No, The Rock wouldn't have been a choice because this was corporate Mankind, and The Rock was the people's champion. But, whoever. Oh, imagine if it was Hulk Hogan. Imagine if it was this guy. And I'll never forget saying, I said this. This is my greatest prediction of all time. Wouldn't it be funny if it was Dwayne Gill? And Dwayne Gill just came out and Mankind just beat him real quick? Wouldn't it be funny if it was Dwayne Gill? And when Dwayne Gill showed up on that TV, because this was like years after, they didn't really use enhancement talent like they used to in 98. When Dwayne Gill showed up, and I literally said that in the car, I went, oh my God. Like, I should have retired from predicting in that moment. I wish I had a podcast in 98. First of all, I would have been way ahead of the game. You kidding me? I would have been a millionaire. And if I was coming up with Dwayne Gill type level predictions, I would have been a young Dave Meltzer. You kidding me? Kyle writes in, what's up, Sam? I know you hate Mount Rushmores. So I'm not going to do that to you, however, because people think that Mount Rushmore is just your top 4 guys, and it's not. Do your research. The 4 faces on Mount Rushmore are there for a reason. There's a reason those 4 guys were picked. Each face represents something different. You can't just put the 4 best guys. They didn't just go top 4 presidents. Let's put them on this mountain. That's not what Mount Rushmore is. People do Mount Rushmores. They have no historical significance whatsoever. A Mount Rushmore discussion is a real discussion. It's not just, here are the 4 best guys. You can't have a Mount Rushmore without this guy. Why? What category does he fit into? What do you mean, categories? I'm just putting my 4 best guys on a rock. That's not what Mount Rushmore is. Jesus. However, I'm curious, when people do talk Mount Rushmores, I don't think I ever hear Bret Hart come up. Why do you think that is? Because he doesn't fit in one of the categories of Mount Rushmore. Also, he's an underrated god. Tigere writes in, who would you personally say is under the mask? Would you say WWE made a good decision? Oh, the devil, hiring CM Punk after the infamous pipe bomb he made. No. They are out of it. Why would they hire CM Punk? They didn't make... Yeah, of course they made... I mean, they made a good decision hiring CM Punk by my business. If CM Punk getting hired is good for my business, can you imagine how good it is for their business? Don't ask these questions. Who would you personally say is under the mask? It's Britt Baker. Britt Baker's the devil. Cade writes in, my name is Cade. I'm a 2-time emailer, and I have an idea for rule number 3. It could be don't fantasy book John Cena. I think I got it. I'm okay with you fantasy booking John Cena. John Cena comes back. If it gets over the top, then... See, people were fantasy booking Randy Orton in very, very lazy ways. Just going, and then Randy Orton comes back. And it's like, it was lazy. You had no idea. He was still injured. Like, I just had enough of it. So, no, that won't be rule number 3. I think I know what rule number 3 is. I think I know. And if you're watching this product, Notsam Wrestling, you probably know too. First-time emailer, long-time listener from Victor. Here's an idea for the devil reveal that I haven't heard too much about. The devil's Tony Khan. What are you talking about? Why? Because of the bidding war of 2024. In an attempt to save his company from letting the champion walk out, he has to screw MJF out of the title. What? Oh, man. What? Because there was a moment in one of the Adam Cole MJF backstage vignettes where MJF mentions 2024 and Tony Khan comes out of his office and screams, "What did you say?" And MJF says nothing. And Tony Khan turns back into a nice guy and says, "Oh, great. Okay, great. Let's have a great show." That always stood out to me. This all leads to World's End, where Tony Khan screws MJF out of the championship to Samoa Joe, revealing himself as the devil. The next week, Khan says he gave MJF a contract months ago and he never signed, so Tony had to take matters into his own hands to save the company? MJF shows up a few weeks later with a contract that says he signed it to make Tony Khan's life but now we have a new... This doesn't make any sense. Number one, Tony Khan can't be cutting promos. And number 2, if you want somebody to be in your company, why would you screw them out of the title? If anything, if you screw MJF out of the title, it's much easier for him to sign to another company. He doesn't have a title. He's got no obligations, and he's in a hostile work environment. I'm going to tell you something. Victor, this is a hideous idea. If they do this, oh, God, would it be bad news for AEW? No, is this too Attitude Era, or would this work? It's not either of those two things. It's not, I guess it's Attitude Era, but Vince McMahon is one of the greatest on-screen performers of all time. Tony Khan is not. Tony Khan does things really well, but he's not Vince in terms of, he's not Mr. McMahon. And if he did this, people would just say you're trying to be like Mr. McMahon, and it wouldn't work. Plus, what sense would this make? Well, now you let me still I'm going to sign the contract, but I'm going to make your life a living hell. Okay, but I still got what I want. I wanted you to sign the contract. Also, why'd you sign the contract? I screwed you out of the title. Also, I can still fire you. Well, plus, you can't do a work shoot MJF is hostile to the boss when you've literally had the boss go on TV and talk about, being in danger. That doesn't work. This is a terrible idea. Rule number 3, do not fantasy book Dwayne Johnson. I'm not. Oh, something fell down. Oh, Chucky. I'm not. No. It's not the same thing. You can, especially leading up to WrestleMania this year. I'm okay with you putting Dwayne Johnson in a what-if scenario. Chris writes in, all hail our podcasting chief. I acknowledge you. Thank you. I wish more people would. My question is, what is the meaning behind Randy Orton's intro into the ring? When he gets on the turnbuckle and throws his hands up in a weird manner. I noticed when Matt Riddle was with the company, he did something similar and wondered if you knew the meaning or reason behind it. Well, Matt Riddle was doing the Randy Orton thing when he did it. Like he was, and Randy Orton is putting his amazing body on display for everybody. And the reason he's doing that is because the voices in his head told him to, and he heard them. If you listen to the lyrics in a song, they're really telling the story. The voices in his head said, I would like you to show your physique to the audience. And so he goes, okay, from the ring. And they go, I prefer second rope. And he go, okay, I hear you voices. Walks to the ring, jumps on the second rope, does this. It's the first way he thinks of to showcase his body to the audience. And then Riddle, who's his tag team partner, sees him doing it and goes, I'd like to do that as well. So that's the background there. Let's see. Pedro writes in, I have great interest in wrestlers' contracts. It's the fantasy football and sports fan in me that I can normally just look up player contracts. Like you say, competition makes everyone better. Do wrestlers get win-lose stipulations in contracts? I.e., Punk signs a contract, says he'll get the belt. No way. No, that never. Hulk Hogan had a creative control clause in his deal in WCW, but it was not a win-loss clause. No, wrestlers do not get win-loss clauses in their deals because it's bad for business. Because if CM Punk shows up, you could say, I would love to win every single match, but if it's bad for business and you're stuck into this deal, like you can't because you don't know how the crowd's going to go. You don't know how a story's going to evolve. Like it's insane. No. I think the general how much people make could be an interesting angle from time to time. Someone could be a top paid wrestler and get $1 million belt. No, you can't. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Pedro. This is gonna be the last email. Like, what are you talking? You think wrestlers' real contract deals should be made public and then make a storyline out of it? Well, then I'd go like, hey, okay, this is how I would go. Okay, I go like this. Guys, I have an idea for a great storyline, okay? You guys pay me $7 million, okay? Hear me out. $7 million. And that's public. And then I'm a heel because I make a lot of money and everybody's mad that I make $7 million and it's more than the rest of the roster. And then the rest of the roster beats me up. And then I get the $7 million. Good idea? What are you talking about? It's wrestling. You know how many carnies would be sitting there going like a storyline involves me making $1 billion. Gran, this is the last email because these are starting to get ridiculous. Writes in, so it's finally Royal Rumble season. And you know who becomes kind of relevant at this time? Kofi Kingston. And it's his yearly saving spots. Yeah, I like that stuff. But I believe this year they have a chance to make something really special, okay? As you've probably seen in the last 2 Rumbles, both of his spots have failed. Yeah. So why not do the obvious and turn that into a storyline? You could have people tell him that he's too old for that stuff and his body is slowly giving up on him. That can also lead to him visibly struggling to hold on to the ropes. Come on. But in the come Royal Rumble, but in the end, managing to execute all is too much of his previous stunts and have an Iron Man performance in the match to prove everybody wrong. Come on, dude. If you don't want your Rumble to be booked so much around Kofi and have him simply fail again and continue that storyline for the future, but it could definitely be acknowledged. 10 out of 10, right? No, 1 out of 10. The last 2 times he failed by accident. So if the storyline is he does every Royal Rumble save that he's ever done successfully, who's to say he's not going to fail again? All of them? You want him to almost get eliminated like 10 times? And now, in a world where we've seen any of them could go wrong at any time, all of them have to be successful for the storyline to make any sense? And then best case scenario, he does all 10 successfully, and then he just gets eliminated anyway. No. Terrible idea. Thank God that's the last email. Hideous idea. Besides that, the best Royal Rumble spot of last year was when Kofi and Xavier were in the ring, and we thought we were finally going to get Kofi versus Xavier, but they just started playing drums on each other's backsides until the next guy came out. That was the best spot of the Rumble. Nobody remembers him, missing the save or whatever. They remember Kofi and Xavier playing drums on each other's backsides. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know. But yeah, thank you for the terrible idea. It was awful. But I do appreciate all you guys emailing in, even the ones with the bad ideas. Good emails, bad emails. Just the fact that you guys are involved and you're listening to the show and you're enjoying it, it makes me feel warm inside the cockholes of my heart. I appreciate all of you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave reviews. Don't forget to subscribe on your audio platforms. And we'll see you later this week when Swerve is in the Notsam studio.